And he was walking through an area and this woman started walking next to him. He was still a single man at the time, so he's like, all right. Then he looked down and she did not have feet.
Hi, my name is Utt.
My name is Raihan.
My name is Wayne.
My name is Kyle.
And this is Tales from Incredible Tales. Together with some very special guests, we're taking a look back at Incredible Tales, a horror anthology that aired on Channel 5 from 2004 to 2017. We will also be asking our guests on their very own scary stories.
Utt, the host of Incredible Tales throughout its 13 years, is back with us again. Hi, Utt.
Hi, guys. I love the intro. The intro has been such a classic when I see people like on the streets and everything, like, hi, my name is...
Oh, man. Yeah.
You started a trend. You
Yeah.
started a trend.
I still remember when we first met, you were like, come on, could you
Say it.
say it
Just
first?
say it. Come on, say it for me just once.
We don't want to be weird, but just say it first.
Did you come up with it? Like the, hi, my name is Utt.
No, that was actually written in. And I remember the first time I did it, I said it lightly, like, hi, my name's Utt. And they're like, no, you have to change the tone. We have to set the tone differently. So yeah, then we kind of worked with it. And then that's how it became the way it did.
Yeah.
Just very straightforward.
And it did set the tone for the whole entire season and the seasons
After,
right after.
yeah.
We were just talking about how like Incredible Tales has its own Wikipedia page. Maybe that should be like a subsection. The
Right.
greeting.
The greeting and the music.
Yeah.
Yo.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Speaking of which, in every episode of Tales from Incredible Tales, we will explore a different theme and how it ties to some of the classic Incredible Tales episodes.
Now, for this episode, we're looking at ghost stories from the past. This episode's theme was inspired by Old Well from Season 1 and Misfortune from Season 2. In Old Well, an old kampong in Mandai has long disappeared, but for an old well that nobody uses. But a secret tale that surrounds the well holds a family tragedy that has been long forgiven. In Misfortune, we travel back to 1953 and recount the story of three women, a prostitute and her two mama sons, who are savagely butchered by an unknown assailant with a kitchen knife.
Let's take a look at the episodes.
Apa lagi? Nak terjun ke?
Wow, your face
Wow.
would mince meat.
There's so many nicer ways you could have said that.
I think it's specifically written to have like sort of like a comedic tone to it. It's just so it makes it even more
Oh,
classic.
yeah.
Yeah, I think the well one was also quite funny. Yeah, like I said, you're gonna jump. I think it was add to like to balance the tone.
Yeah.
But it was, and I think they really like to held back on the horror because they could have easily given her like really, you know, the rotten makeup because like it's the shroud thing, right?
Yes.
That they are buried in, so it would have looked more like a pocong.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
but they went chill lah.
Yeah,
because
yeah,
there's
yeah.
kids watching.
I mean, I was watching it and I was really scared at the point of time.
I was sharing with you guys how we would air at 10 or after 10
yes.
because
Yeah.
we didn't want children to get scared.
Yeah.
But it turns out that a lot of times when I would meet people, they would be watching it as a family. The whole family would be watching it. The kids, the parents, and even the grandparents.
Yeah.
Nice, wholesome family
Yeah.
activity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember watching it on Thursday nights, I think, between me and my sister only. And we were like 8 or 9. And I remember there was one time where we were watching and in my parents' place, the TV was actually facing the main door.
Right.
So it was 10 p.m. We switched off all the lights. I mean, my parents sleep already lah.
Yeah.
So me and my sister, they didn't really care that we watch a horror show. So we just sat there. And just nice, there was someone knocking on the door at a very crucial part of the episode, like tuk, tuk, tuk. And we were like, we freaked out. It's like, hey, ghost. And as a kid, I was very timid. My sister was a much braver person Then I told her, hey, you go and open the door. Please, go and open the door. Then she opened the door. Turns out someone was selling like Yacob or something, like vitagen.
But at 10?
At 10?
At 10.
Yeah.
It's an auntie. No, but the auntie, we've seen her around.
Okay. So,
She's just hustling. But it was creepy, like, because we did a pause. Like, and the TV was still running because not Netflix, right? You can't pause like live TV back then. But it's like still playing. Then it was like, should we open it or not? Then I said, hey, you open it. Then she opened it.
Very close call, huh? At least it's someone you know. Right, so speaking of the episode, so in Misfortune, the fortune telling plays a huge part of it. So do you believe in fortune telling?
I feel with fortune telling, you need to take it with like a pinch of salt, like basically what you can use from it in order to like better yourself or where you're going to move forward. I think that's okay, but I think when you rely on it, because it's relying on hope, and that's I'm a firm believer that everything is destined by you where you're going to go with yourself. But if it's going to kind of give you that added guidance, then it's okay. But when you rely on it, I think it just puts you in a whole different place.
I know of some friends who are in the business of like fortune telling, and they're like, some people can't take it. They say, if I tell you something about you, you won't be able to take it.
Yeah.
So I would rather not tell you because it's a psychological thing. Because you will become a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is fortune telling based on feng shui of the person?
Is a gifted individual. It's either through like the tellings of higher power, or like some calculation based on your birth time and birth date.
Right.
Yeah, at least that's for the Chinese ones lah.
Yeah, I mean, there's different forms of fortune telling. It's like what Kyle said. Some of them are based on like the calculations, the astrology, and there's different types of astrology, Chinese astrology, and then the international astrology. And then there's the ones where it's like a higher power, where, a deity comes, you're linked to a deity. And then it can be quite subjective because as in all things in the world, like there are people who are faking it.
Yeah.
So you don't know whether or not they're really telling the truth or not. It's very psychological. The thing is, like, if you're a fortune teller and you're using the tarot cards or the calculations enough times, then you're going to be able to tell, tell a person, like, what their personality is, what their problems might be.
Yeah.
But for that person, it's like, oh my gosh, they know me.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, they kind of know you through their experience.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's kind of like mentalist, right? It's like behavioral science, right?
Yes.
So they read your behavioral, and then they met so many people, so they kind of know like how you will react. Then they will tweak it lah. Not saying it's fake, but like they will tweak it based on that.
Yeah.
And I think it applies across all different forms of, like, I guess.
As long as you take it, but you don't have it just running in your mind.
Obsessed, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
obsessed with it.
Yes.
My mom actually went to see a fortune teller when I was 16. And that's part of the reason why I ended up in Asia. So apparently she went to see a monk who can see the future. So that's not, I don't know if you would claim that as a fortune teller, but he had told her that she needed to get me out of where I was born, anywhere in the world, but where her, if it was her motherland, it would be even better.
Oh, wow.
And then that my fortune will change.
Wow.
That I will become famous.
I guess it came
Very specific.
That's very specific. Yeah. She didn't tell me that at the time. Yeah. She told, but she told everyone else, like all the relatives and everything.
Wow.
That, it's like, it was bad. If I had stayed, it would have been bad fortune for me to be in the US. So like she had to change the environment for me. Oh, wow. But I think it was like if you bring him back to your homeland, his fortune's going to bring him, like, accelerate him, like, into the industry. Like with she didn't say industry, she said fame. Yeah.
Wow.
So she didn't understand what they meant by fame.
Okay, so there's a real classic feel to the All Well episode that we saw. Like it's taken straight from the films from the middle of the 20th century. So how do you think horror stories in film and television have changed since then?
I think there's a mix. I mean, you still have the old school way of telling the horror stories, and then you have the new ways, which is with the times. I think, like we were talking about the medium, how it's told in a documentary way, and I think nowadays, like if it's like kind of because we're like in the social media age, so if it's told in a way that connects to the newer generation, then they kind of connect to it better. So as with all things kind of start to adapt. So I think that's how ghost stories are told now. But then you can't take away like the classic ghost stories. They'll always be classic. You'll always go back to them.
Yes.
That's why like the Exorcist or those Friday the 13th, like they'll always be classic.
Yeah, I agree on that. It's like how in the Malay culture, Kat B is still there all the way from years back.
Oh yeah.
The Rose recent adaptation was Revenge of a Pontianak, right?
Yes.
Yeah. She's basically the Dracula of Southeast Asia, right?
Yeah.
I think for Thailand, the version of ours would be the Nanak or Nanak.
Yeah.
So there's been different versions.
Yeah.
But like it holds true to the core story, which I'm sure is the same. But the way it's presented gets presented in a more modern way each time.
Yeah.
Because I think the last one that they did a take on Nanak, there was some comedic elements to it, along with the horror part of it. So that would answer your question: how things have changed between with that storytelling. And I think the storytelling, it comes from the same foundation, but they kind of adapt it to the new generation.
Right. So at this point of time, we've seen you film in various places: city, forest, jungles, alleys, and all that. Which type of setting was your favorite so far?
I don't think I have a favorite. I felt like I was on an adventure each time we went to shoot. An extension of like me getting to explore Singapore. So, being in these different places. I think we were mentioning about the Mandai Kampong, right? Yeah. And I look back and I'm so fortunate to be able to have gone to these different places that don't exist anymore. So I would say just overall I enjoyed being everywhere, like at the flats. Because I think in the beginning, when I first moved to Singapore, I didn't know the heartlands because I lived in the city. So, I was in a condo. So when I started to shoot Incredible Tales, it brought me into the heartland. I started to see like the flats and how people live, and then also being in the city and then in the forest. And I realized that like Singapore is not just Orchard Road. It's not just shopping. It's like there's a whole it's quite big as compared to what tourists believe Singapore to be. It's small, but it's bigger than for someone who's not Singaporean.
So you mentioned that you actually visited the Kampong. So when you were shooting your hosting links for the Well episode, was it in an actual Kampong in Singapore?
Yes. I'm not sure where, but I remember vividly back in the day that Kampong still exists, but they were smaller. They were rare.
We have one in Buangkok still.
We do,
Was it the Bangkok one?
I think so.
All right, so this question is for everyone. Did your parents or grandparents share with you their ghost stories? And what are they? And do they still scare you until today?
My grandma didn't really share anything. But after she passed away, she came to visit me. That's... Yeah.
Wow. It took me a second to process what you were saying.
Realize, right?
Yeah, I was like, you said that a little bit too casually.
Okay, so your grandma visited you right after she passed away, or?
Yeah, she did. Yeah, my grandma's really, she's very Kampong. She was a street hawker. She's very like a dirty grandma. She has a lot of sexual jokes and everything. I'm like, how do I say this in a way that gives honor to her? But but she was a really funny grandma. Very dirty in a good way. So anyways, so that's how she came to visit me. Like basically, she just threw a lot of jokes at me and everything. And then basically, she's like, because she was like 9. She was like, I think 100 already.
Wow.
So the way she came to visit me was like, hey, I'm okay. I lived my full life. So now it's like, later, bitches. No, literally, that's what she said in Thai.
Oh, my God.
I'm like, I'm going. I'm not looking back. You're on your own now.
That's really sweet.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
Really
sweet.
sweet.
Really
It was really
sweet.
sweet.
Wow.
Yeah, okay lah. I try to stick to the Kampong theme.
Yeah. I can see you going through the Rolodex of stuff.
Yeah, like I have like the Rolodex of ghost stories. So okay, my father's side is Chinese. So my grandfather is actually from Fujian, China. So when they moved to Singapore for the first time and married my grandmother, they lived in the Kampong-ish area in I think Dakota. And their house was a rental house, and it was very old. And they were facing a forest. They were surrounded by forest. And I heard from my dad that there used to be spirits living in the house. So it's a 2-story kind of kampong-ish house. It's all made of wood. And my great-grandmother would stay in the first floor because she was bedridden. And the first floor is where the kitchen is at, with the living room. It's a very small one. And then the rest of the family would stay in the second floor. Then, and it was a big family, so there were like 5-6 of them staying together, siblings, and then my grandparents. So every night, right, my great-grandmother, because at that point she was like already a bit bedridden and almost on the way towards the end of her life lah. So she would yell out names of deceased relatives.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. She could see them. Yeah, and she was staying alone at the first floor. Yeah. Then sometimes my dad and my uncles and my aunties, they will hear people climbing up the stairs in the middle of the night. And you will always freak them out. So you will go like this.
Okay.
Then before you reach the last step, and then you go down. Yeah. So there's a couple of theories lah. One of the theories is that it's one of the deceased relatives. And another theory is it could be a deity. Because my grandparents are very devout to the religion lah. So it could be the deity. But my uncle did say that it's more likely to be the spirits from the underworld.
Right.
Coming to visit my great-grandmother. And some of them heard chains.
Oh.
Because it's the chains from the underworld to pull the spirits lah.
What about your favorite, or the ghost stories from the past that your parents or your grandparents?
Kampong.
The kampong kind.
I know.
I definitely.
Kampong.
It was always around where my parents used to stay. My parents both stayed in the same neighborhood. I think it was my dad's father, who he never outwardly said that he had the third eye.
Yeah.
And he would never tell his kids, oh, I see this, I see that. But he always stood on guard at the house to make sure his family was home safe every night. And the way my dad used to describe it was he had this look in his eye where you could kind of tell he wasn't, it wasn't a case of, oh, I hope nobody comes and robs our place. It was a case of something else. Like he was always looking for something else out there. And it will always reach a certain point in the night where he just decided, okay, I think we're safe. My family's all here. Everybody's in the house. And we'll just, we'll call it a night. But yeah, the one story from the area that I do remember my dad telling me was his own encounter with Kapi. And he was coming back late, which is precisely what his dad told him not to do, come back late. But of course he didn't listen. So he's coming back late and he was walking. I will say it's along like Serangoon Road. At some point he was walking and it was a very dark and creepy area. And I can say this with full confidence because even now when I pass by the area, it's still, even with the streetlights, it is dark and it is creepy. They've got in more than enough streetlights there, but it's still for some reason just very dark at night. And he was walking through the area and this woman started walking next to him. And he thought, oh, okay. He was still a single man at the time, so he's like, all right. Then he looked down and she did not have feet. She was just floating next to him. I don't know whether he's exaggerating this because my dad has been known to exaggerate, but he claims that he kept his cool and just continued walking. He was very polite to her. He was like, oh, good evening, and everything like that. Because she said hello to him, so he just responded, good evening. And they just kept moving forward. And eventually he reached his house, and he walked in, and he turned around, and there was nobody there.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm like speechless.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
And what's like in my head right now is like reenactments
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah.
All these stories that we're
Yes.
sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reenactments, yeah.
And it's such a funny thing because like my dad never told this to us when we were kids. And it's not something that, ghost stories were never something that I bonded with. Like the closest thing, and I'm not just saying this because of the show, but the closest thing me and my parents had to bonding over ghost stories was watching Incredible Tales. So all of a sudden, I can't remember what prompted it. He went, oh yeah, I have a ghost story. And then he just told me this. I was like,
Nice.
where have you been keeping this for the last like 30 odd years? Because you never told me this before.
I guess the Kampong vibes has definitely elevated
Yeah.
the ghost stories around it.
Yeah.
Because my parents have never told me anything about their experiences in terms of ghost. But I've had experiences being chased or being talked to by a ghost
Aiyo.
in
God.
Kampong.
Aiyo.
So my father has a Kampong back in Malaysia in a place called Pontian.
Oh,
Yeah. It sounds a little familiar.
The
Yeah.
one tummy.
And back then, the toilet and the house is far apart. It's outside. You have to go out. It's like about 40 meters away. So I was really still young. So he did told me this, that when you're at night, try to stay inside the house. I need to go to the toilet at that point of time. It was 12 a.m.
Yeah.
What a bad timing. So I left the house. I went alone because I was really desperate. And I went to the cubicle there. It was just a really squarish cubicle where you can enter. There's light on it so I can see the toilet. I wanted to enter, and right before I enter, I heard a very nice female voice asking me in Malay, "Adik, nak main sama-sama?"
Aiyo.
Oh.
Translation?
In English is, little boy, do you want to play with me? And at that point of time, I just stand there. Right before I enter, I stand there. I look up, I look down, I look left, right. There was nobody. I hold my pee, I went back.
Yeah.
I didn't decide to pee.
Yeah.
And I went back. My father asked, do you pee? No, there was somebody asking me if I want to play with her.
Yeah.
And then my father said, okay, never mind, you stay here.
You're much braver than I am. I would have peed myself.
Right on the spot.
Do you guys still have the house?
Yes.
So it's
But
like
then-
a holiday home.
No, it's my my aunt's place. Right, so we paid a visit at that point of time. But the house right now has a toilet inside the house.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's great.
Yeah.
I don't have to go through that again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, if there's one specific ghost story or the ghost itself that you're really scared of until today, what would it be?
I think the one that stands out because we're discussing it is Manak for me. Not so much whether it freaks me out, but it's such a classic story because there's a love story that's embedded in the tragedy of it being a horror.
Yeah.
And I think that will forever be a tale that kind of resonates for me personally because there's that tragedy in the ghost of Manak who is waiting for her husband to come back from war, but she's already dead.
Yeah.
And his love for her, he sees her alive.
Wow.
Whereas like the whole entire Kampong village knows that she's dead.
Right.
So I think just having that cross is like, it's very tender, yet it is quite scary too at the same time.
I think a lot of people don't really, to a lot of people, horror is just scares. But I think people don't realize how much emotion goes into these stories as well. And it's more than just horror. That's why we talk about like the comedic elements of it, but it's still very much a part of it.
What about yourself, Carl?
I would say the classic Pontianak. Because I've experienced it. I've not seen it, but I've experienced it quite a few times. The frangipani smell. Yeah. So it's that smell that reminds you of her. And also the whole story of how it's also tragic lah.
Yeah.
Like how the patriarchy of Asian culture basically created this spirit, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think for me it's definitely Pontianak.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's right.
It's hard for me to give a different answer for that as well because she's so much a part of our culture. I talking about the frangipani as well. This suddenly made me realize that the first time I never encountered her, but I remember when I was a kid, the flat we were staying in was there was a neighborhood of flats, and then right next to it was like 2 lanes of landed properties. And these landed properties aren't old, or they weren't old at the time. They were like maybe built like 20 years ago. So it wasn't like, rich history or anything like that. But there was a staircase that led from the landed properties up to where the flats were. And I remember passing by there with my mom and my dad, and I think at least one of my siblings. And I can't remember who it was. Somebody said as we were walking past, "Can you smell those flowers?" And my mom immediately went, "Shut up."
Yeah.
And I was very young at the time. I had no idea why it was bad to point out that you smelled flowers. And it was only like years later that we were recounting that story. I was like, oh, that flower specifically.
Yeah.
But yeah, for me, I think it's the Pontianak. She's just, when I think of, at the very least, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore, when I think of ghost stories or supernatural, that's the first one that always comes to mind.
That's right. Yeah. As for myself, I'll give a different answer than Pontianak. It's Penanggal.
Oh,
Headless. The bodiless.
yeah.
Just the head floating around with
The entrails.
Is this one, is it tied to trees? I'm just curious because we have like a similar one in Thailand.
Yeah, I know the one.
Yeah.
But so it's the different.
It's slightly different.
Okay.
It's like
But
floating head.
it's similar, like it has entrails and the head that will fly around.
Head will fly around. So for me, that's creepier because I don't see a full body.
Yeah.
So I see a head flying and with those things hanging on.
Yeah.
Right? So and in Malay shows, Malay films, they usually have it like, if you open your window, because this would need some space to come in, the head will just enter effortlessly.
Yeah.
So that scares me.
Very, very compact and very...
And also like it's a matter of like laundry, right? Because like the legend goes, right.
Oh, right,
The
okay.
blood of the angel
Oh,
on
right.
your clothes, right? You will get cursed or something.
Yeah.
I thought you were saying that her laundry is like a mess because of all...
Oh no, then you can't do laundry at night.
Yeah.
But sometimes you just got to.
I thought the laundry at night thing was Pontianak, right?
No.
Oh, okay.
Actually, a lot of manners of ghosts.
Yeah, actually, even until today, my parents still say don't hang laundry at night.
Yeah. That's just good advice, lah.
Yeah.
Later the wind blow, then your laundry gone.
Yeah. That's fair. All right, we're coming to the close on this episode. And you know what that means. It's time for our morbid fact of the day. This doesn't have to be about ghosts. It could be about anything. You've got one as well, but
Yes.
let's hear Kyle's first. We'll save yours for the grand finale. Kyle, what's our morbid fact for today?
Okay, so this one also Japanese. During the Japanese occupation of Singapore, apparently severed heads of spies and criminals were hung around Anderson Bridge by soldiers as a deterrent.
Anderson Bridge.
I mean,
Anderson Bridge. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I hope people are watching this and not just listening to it, because the reactions on your faces.
Mine's excitement.
Yeah.
Mine's like,
it's
okay,
just
I got head there right after this this session.
yeah, no, because I would imagine that as a deterrent.
Yeah.
Because they I think they did public execution as well. So it's not that far for them to do this kind of atrocity. Yeah.
I'm no longer going to look at bridge the same way.
Have you not heard about the bridge?
Oh my God.
Which bridge? All the bridges.
No.
So there's an urban legend in Singapore back in the day when they wanted to build bridges and they were afraid that the bridge would collapse. They did a ritual where they kidnapped young children, chopped off their heads, and put it in the pillars of the bridges to appease a form of a bridge guardian. It is an urban legend, lah.
Yeah.
So
There's a child stuck in a bridge right now.
Child's head.
Oh,
several.
It's like it's their spirits.
Yeah.
To hold the bridge.
Yeah.
It's really messed up, and I heard it from my grandmother. That's the thing.
Oh.
Yeah, she told me.
Okay.
Mine's actually a segue from what Kyle just shared
wonderful.
now. So similar to the bridge, urban legend in Thailand, but I think it's probably true. So a lot of like the pillars that you see, like more of the Grand Palace, or like if you go out to outside of Bangkok, the ancient cities, the pillars.
Yeah.
So there would be, I don't know the exact theme behind it, but there would be the bomo or or the priests or the monks or whatnot. They would come up with things. So let's say if they need to signify karma, winning, rich. So you have to go out to find these letters. So winning, Wayne, karma, Kyle, rich, Raihan. Then you would have to basically give your life up. And then what they would do, but there'd be more to it,
Right.
They have jewelry, they will have pigs and cows and whatnot. And they would just throw you in alive before they do up the pillar. Because they need your restless spirits in order to protect the grounds.
Oh my.
Oh my God.
Isn't that a good segue from?
Yeah, that's
Great segue.
That's extremely morbid. But like, is it a thing? Is it real, or is it just an urban legend?
It's an urban legend.
Oh,
All right. So thank you so much, Art.
thanks.
Right,
Art.
such
Thanks,
a great
Art.
episode.
Thanks, guys.
And thank you all of you out there for tuning in to Tales from Incredible Tales. New episodes go up on every Thursday evening on YouTube and MeWatch, as well as on podcast platforms such as meLISTEN, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts.
My name is Utt.
My name is Wayne.
My name is Kyle.
My name is Raihan, and we'll see you next time.